exactly. So, you shouldn't be here. Right, so rDAI, separating interest from principal. So we launched this to mainnet, I think it was in December eventually, to the actual DAI. Before it was on side, and we moved to DAI. Currently got about 50,000 DAI deposited in the contract, generating interest for a variety of different things. There's been a few pretty cool projects that have been built, so I actually wanted to show you a couple of them. Right, okay, my bad. Okay, so one of the projects that was recently built is called rTrees, and it's basically a project that they only built the front end. So there's absolutely no Solidity work in this app. It only uses the rDAI and the rDAI's programmability. And then they just built this really cute 3D UI. So you basically activate DAI, and that plants a tree, and the interest goes to the charities, and you can see this little tree grow up, and you can buy power-ups, but literally the only thing you're doing is minting rDAI. So in order to do this, they leverage rDAI's programmability. So in case any of you haven't ever used it, so rDAI pretty much has two components. On one side, it's just a token, normal. But then each address that holds rDAI has what we call a hat, and this is basically a config. So this says where the interest has to go for each user. So if you don't have one, there's a default one, which is basically yourself. If you don't have one and somebody sends you some rDAI, they kind of give you a hat. But otherwise, you can set your own hat, and it looks something like this. So you can have any number of recipients in any different proportions, and that just defines who gets the interest. So going back to rTrees, basically what they do is they ask users to mint rDAI with a specific hat, which basically defines that the charity, so a specific address, gets 98% of the interest, and then 2% goes to them as developers. Right? So that's all they did. They launched it in a few weeks. I think they've got about 8K going to trees. I can't remember the number, but it's like a lot of trees a year. They found a charity that's very cheap, like 10 cents per tree. So it's quite satisfying.
It's fucking cool, man.
To see the trees growing. I didn't make this.
The level of transparency as well.
Yeah,
it's like the fact that
cool.
2% is going to them and the rest to a charity, and there's no like.
So what I want to show you next is our Explorer. So this is pretty cool because you can see interest flowing in real time. So
Wow.
That's the Explorer.
Wow.
Okay, so this is our trees. These are all tree huggers donating to charities. So this is actually the charity, and that is the
dev
app. So as you can see, the bolts are bigger here and the bolts are smaller here. I mean, it could be kind of a bit clearer, but yeah, you get the drift. So, for example, you can see this guy's got 1,256 DAI balance. So he's a tree-hugging whale. On the other side, you have our DAO, which is also a bit of a whale. So it's this one, and these are all other people who are interacting with our DAO. So basically what you can see is, imagine this is a user, right? So they have hat 47, and they are giving interest to these two addresses. So what you can see is, interest flowing to this address and this address, and that's kind of moving in real time.
Is this, can I get this public? Like, can I
it's so this is kind of a version I've been playing around on, but it's just explorer.rdai.money, and you can use it on Kovan and on mainnet, and yeah, it's something somebody built for the graph hackathon. So they built a subgraph, and then they built this. There's still some things that we need to work on, because for example, you can't see the interest in real time, because that actually needs to be calculated. So this visualization is actually based on kind of implied interest, but you can't actually calculate it without going through Web3.
What's a good approximation?
Yeah, no, it's exact. Like, because basically how rDAI works, it basically so you're moving around rDAI, but you're actually moving around two things, or actually three things. So on one side, you're moving around rDAI. On the other side, you're moving around cDAI for each user, and then you're moving around something we call debt. So basically, if I want to give Makoto some interest, what I do is I keep rDAI, I send him cDAI, and I also send him debt that is exactly the same as my rDAI. So if I have 100 rDAI, I have 100 rDAI worth of cDAI. I send him the cDAI, I send him the debt, and I keep the rDAI. And basically, he accrues interest by virtue of the fact that cDAI is worth more each block, but the debt stays the same. So the difference is the interest that he's getting. So basically here you're just visualizing these cDAI values. So it's pretty accurate, but to calculate exactly how much it is, you'd have to know how much cDAI is worth now. And yeah, so this is it's not a Web3 app. But I hope in the future we have the time and funds and energy. Everybody's welcome to our community, by the way, if you want to work for free. No, we have some bounties active, actually. So if anybody is interested, we have a bunch of bounties. We have funds that we haven't committed. So if you have any ideas, we can just, talk about it and put out a bounty for you. So we literally today somebody submitted the permit function. So if you guys were here last time, the permit function is something that was put into the latest DAI implementation. You remember what I'm talking about, right? So it's kind of it's like approve, but it allows meta transactions. So basically, it's a cool new ERC20 edition, and it was today somebody put it into our code. So that's something we're open to, and if anybody has any ideas, happy to work on it. We're currently working on ideas for a next version of rDAI. It's probably gonna include some more features for this, because this is super basic, but I guess this could be more complex and allow for other things, right? I don't know what it could be, but we're open to ideas. So if anybody does have an idea of what programmable interest might mean, what other options they might want. Some people
about the destination balance. So I'm really talking about us, but you asked me when I saw rDAI, the first thing I saw, I was like, okay, so I'm going to have my ledger, and I'm going to stream the interest straight to my Monolith wallet, / ideally to my card even. And so with that in mind, if you could have something like the target balance goes under 2 ETH, you start streaming the interest. It goes over 3 ETH, you stop streaming the interest. A trigger based on the status of the recipient balance.
Yeah, triggers are tricky though. You'd need somebody to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm really talking just from my user perspective.
That's interesting. So you would say based on the current balance of the destination.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, you don't even need. Yeah, you could do that actually.
Including
you could do that. You just have to change the calculation underneath, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really played around safety, and I'm no dev.
So
it's just giving you my.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Mel about that, because it would be pretty cool if you could just keep all your money in a ledger or even in the smart contract, and then have the spendable balance on your card just kind of top up automatically, right? Mm-hmm. So that's doable here. You just need to set one recipient and set it to the hot wallet, and that's it. It's done. And that's why you can kind of build very simple interest-based dApps without really coding anything, because this is something you can do through our dApp. So to do this, you just go to our dApp, which is really ugly, but whatever. You go to create, and here you can just specify different addresses, and this is basically your config, right? So you can just set it. We take a 5% cut if you want to give it to us. Otherwise, you can take it away, but you have to click through this really annoying pop-up. So, if you do that, you can remove the donation.
Doesn't work. Puts it at 100%.
And there you go. So that's it, right? So you can, if you want to build something in a hackathon which is based on interest, this is just really easy. You just have to build a UI, and then dedicate an address, create a hat for that address, and that's it. and there you go. And there's this guy that's built something called Give Together, which works exactly like Pull Together, but the person who wins is a charity. And again, pretty much no coding. So yeah, so we decided to make an ERC20 which had some programmability built in, which didn't require people to build stuff afterwards. So yeah, I mean there are some cool things that can be built with this. If anybody here doesn't have an idea for ETH London, I want to build. Actually, can you turn off the camera?
Oh. Wait,
No,